So today we're looking at breath, feeding the fire of the life force. Breath is absolutely critical to our life process, and we will see in many details why I make that statement. Without breath, we do not exist. I want to take a look as we begin at some larger dimensions of this breath process. It is a physical process. It is a muscular process. It is a metabolic process. But breath forms the core of many yogic philosophies, many meditational philosophies, much of Buddhist philosophy. And in those contexts, those disciplines are thinking not of breath as just oxygen in, O2 out, and so forth. But one of the names for breath in those traditions is Atman. Atman has a double meaning. It means the greater consciousness, the life, the force of the universe, the continuing existence of the cosmos, and it is also has a synonymous meaning of the self. So oxygen is feeding our cells, and in that self, we are a part of that Atman. And raising our consciousness of self through the breath connects us to that larger spiritual realm of energy that permeates us and permeates the cosmos and is the divine force, not simply the oxidative force within our bodies, of which that is one example of the divine force. And it is, in those philosophies, connected to or described as pranayama. Pranayama is the process of bringing our consciousness to the many dimensions, self, Atman, cosmos, larger spiritual realm of being in which we are all immersed, the connection with the divine, if you will. So breath is a rather big deal. Breath, the exchange of oxygen, CO2, and other gases, is the most consistent and the most urgent biochemical need of our organisms. And this is the meaning of the fusion of Atman and self. You can survive without water for days, without food for weeks, but you will repeat the tidal rhythm of breath between 15,000 and 20,000 times a day. These bellows of life have to keep continually pumping, or life either diminishes in its capacities or snuffs itself out. This makes breath the most habituated movement of our muscles. 15 to 20,000 times a day, the muscularity and the metabolic process of this breathing process takes place. And hundreds of muscles are involved in full, free, and nourishing breathing. This is why breathing is a central focus in all manners of yoga and all meditative processes. Without breath, we diminish ourselves. And all special breathing techniques, in my view, and all asanas are in one way or another designed to facilitate the musculature of breath, the consciousness of breath, and the exchange of these crucial gases, oxygen in, O2 out, that feeds our system on a 20,000 times a day continual basis. And I want to say that for me, and this has come from a variety of textbooks that I am familiar with, in spite of all these special breathing techniques, what they are designed to facilitate is an optimal full breath which occurs in these stages. In the process of inhalation, the diaphragm contracts and lowers. This is what creates the suction that brings air into our lungs. And as the abdomen above contracts, the diaphragm below relaxes and expands to make room for the contractile falling of the diaphragm. Then the spine lengthens and the ribs rise and expand for a full inhalation. Diaphragm contracts, abdomen relaxes, spine lengthens and lifts the ribs rise and with their own musculature, and the expansion of my lungs takes place. Excuse me. On the exhale, this process follows the reverse order. Ribs fold downward and the spine shortens. The abdomen contracts, and as the abdomen contracts, the diaphragm relaxes, and the contraction of the abdomen pushes that relaxed diaphragm up, and that constitutes our full exhale and the elimination of the gases that are produced by the metabolism of breath that we have to get rid of. Each breath is either facilitated or constrained by our habituated postures and any restrictions or restraints that we have in our overall muscular patterning. And in this process, emotions and stress play very large roles. This is why mastering the full, easy, habituated process of full inhale, full exhale calms the system and energizes the system at the same time. This is the magic of the metabolism of breath. It is both emotionally calming and physically energizing, and gives the capacity to deal with stress that is pounding us down, constricting our system, diminishing our capacities. So breath is, on the psychological level, directly linked to the health of our emotional process and the management of stress in our lives. Now, to begin with, I want to look at the 4 stages of breath. We've discussed inhale and exhale, but that is only part of the picture. Breath permeates our entire organism, and this happens in stages. Those stages I want to look at. Stage 1 is filling the lungs. As the diaphragm contracts and lowers and the rib cage expands, suction is created that pulls that air into our lungs. And that air entering our breathing tube, our trachea up here, starts to branch out in many, many branches throughout the lung structure within our rib cage. And from that throat opening, it branches out into all of the bronchial tubing that will eventually connect to all the air sacs where the real exchange of oxygen and CO2 takes place. These branches we're looking at here are the growth structures. As we look down further, deeper into the system of these bronchial airwaves, the tubes get thinner and thinner and thinner, and more and more and more branching takes place. Until finally, down at the end of each one of these bronchial tubes is a collection of air sacs. And these are the little chambers that our inhalation fills and our exhalation empties. Now, there's some interesting statistics about the numbers that are contained in these bronchial tubings and these air sacs. You have approximately 1,500 miles of airways in your lungs. Contemplate that a moment. Each breath travels 1,500 miles through my inhalation process and the distribution of that oxygen out into all